Why don't we turn it to the audience? Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
I actually have a three-part question, but you can answer yes or no. Okay. Did you gain any actionable, concrete insight that you would not have otherwise gained from normal research? So did biometrics give you additional insight, concrete insight? That's number one. Number two, did you apply that insight? And three, did you measure the results of that application?
Okay. So go ahead, Maria. You want to start?
Yeah,
Maria, to some extent, answered.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes, yes.
So, yes.
That's all I needed.
Yeah. Yes, and I believe we did get some very concrete things that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And again, I'm talking about TV advertising in this case. And it's as I mentioned before, we were able to dissect and add and come away with 6 or 8 areas that could be improved. We did go out and do that, and we did measure that particular ad again. And these are subtle kinds of differences. And we did see a dramatic improvement.
And then you also
So-
mentioned the web testing that also
Yes,
had-
and we
had
did it
improved.
with web testing. This is the same kinds of things with web testing.
And to be fair, you know, web testing is one of the nice things about it is that it's easy to measure ROI. 'Cause
Yeah.
you can send
Yeah, you
one
can track
version
it.
out and another version you can track it very
Yeah.
easily.
So yes, yes, and yes.
Stacey?
I would say we're probably a triple yes, but the last yes, I think we are still working through. And you know, for us to be working with our content and how to make those connections work better, some of it's on us and some of it's on the creative we get from advertisers to create those really great connections. So in many ways, we've learned a lot about how to do that better. We haven't necessarily remeasured it because not the same advertisers come back every time to measure that experience. But I would say, yeah, it's probably a triple yes without all things being equal.
Great. Libby, I know you're early on, so you
Right.
could probably only answer the first, what, 1 or 2?
Right, I would say the first 2 are yes, and we obviously,
Stay tuned.
yeah, stay tuned for number
They
3.
just went in market today. Sebastien?
Yes, I think to answer your question specifically, I think one insight we got was really this need of congruency between emotions and branding, I mentioned. Also, the way you can work on your format is very important. So most of the time we are testing some formats which are 30 seconds. But it depends on the condition of media spending. In some countries, the media is so expensive that it's not even a format we can consider. So it can help us also to find the best sequence from the 30 seconds we need to action in some countries to maximize the ratio emotion branding versus the full story. So to illustrate this point.
Okay. Yes.
So this seems like a fairly straightforward and really useful tool for creative or for advertising. So my question is for Ms. Schulman. How were you able to use the biometrics to sort of make that connection between the emotional response to those scenes with your TVinContext project and then the certain advertising products? How were you able to use them to make that connection, and then were you able to prove any sort of intent to purchase with that?
I wouldn't go all the way to say we were proving intent to purchase. I would say that a lot of the work we did early on was about making the most powerful connections we could without creating an aversion response. So as I started to say in the beginning, we had 3 different levels of context that we could create with these movie scenes. One was explicit, where if it was a bottle of Bud in the scene, it would be for Budweiser. The brand is used in the scene. One's categorical. It could be a scene where people are drinking beer, but you don't really know what the brand is. And the other might be what we would call attributive, where sort of the brand attributes of fraternity and good times or whatever might be used in that scene. And what we learned a lot about was, how to actually create that right combination with the advertising so that we weren't completely in your face and over the top, but you were still making powerful connections that people walked away with a good feeling as opposed to, oh wow, they really did put those two things together and tried to sell me something. So it was more of that than getting all the way to purchase intent. We did find through other research that was, more of the traditional nature, that proved out that people were walking away with a better sense of the attributes that the brands were trying to get across, but at the same time necessarily weren't recalling that brand at a higher level. So when we put those two things together, we were able to say, interesting, not a lot of as much unaided recall as we would have expected, but the message is getting through. Why do we think that is? And then we proved it out through looking at the biometric data that there was indeed an engaged response and people were reacting emotionally to it.
And that was a great case of sort of the conscious measures not even be able to access something, but then when you asked the question in a different way, you were able to actually get at that information. And that's something we see a lot.